Welcome back to the channel. I'm Kevin, and today I am doing a special April Fool's video where I'm going to make a bunch of stuff from Stardew Valley and hide it around the house to prank my wife. For any of you who've played Stardew Valley, you'll know that sometimes you go to sleep and you wake up to find something strange on your farm. There's a stone owl statue which can appear. I think at the night market you can also buy a separate stone owl statue, but the design is a little bit different. There's a meteor which requires an upgraded pickaxe to destroy. It's studded with these nice purple crystals and gives you some iridium ore when you break it. Lastly, there's a strange capsule, which seems to have an alien inside. After a few days, the capsule breaks open and turns into an empty capsule, with the alien seeming to have escaped. I was going to spend months carefully preparing for this, but then I didn't. I decided on March 26th that I still wanted to do this year, as opposed to putting it off for next year. Since I actually have to make the video before posting it, I had very little time to do this. These were some of the most rushed prints I've ever done, which was interesting in its own way. Let's start with the stone owl. It's the most complicated one, and I really wanted to do this from scratch to help improve my modeling. I just didn't have time. I ended up taking this model from Thingiverse and remixing it. This is definitely the correct approach, and if this was something in my professional life, I would have jumped on this. But this is my hobby, so I am a little bit disappointed that I couldn't take the fun and inefficient path. Some of the geometry here is pretty terrible, even for me. The worst parts are hidden in the base, and this is only going to be a couple of inches tall, so it'll be fine. I skipped breakfast to work on this, and it was worth it. I scaled some of the proportions so the head was larger and the body more compact. It took me less than an hour, and I was able to get this over to the printer before I started my workday. I'm doing all of this at a 0.1mm layer height since this is small and I don't have time for much sanding. I peeled off the supports, and this was looking pretty great. For the meteorite, I searched meteor on Thingiverse and found a bunch of terrain pieces with large impact craters. That was cool, but not quite what I needed. Then I searched rock on Thingiverse, and it brought up some delightful prints featuring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I definitely want to come back to this at some point, but it's not what I need right now. Eventually, I found a nice asteroid which I could remix. I cut the bottom off, scaled some cubes so they looked like crystals, and started rearranging everything. I kind of hate how this looks since it's so irregular, but that's how it's supposed to be, so I guess it's fine. After finding the base model, this took me maybe 20 minutes. Last was the alien capsule, which was the easiest to do and the only one I made from scratch. This only took me about 20 minutes to model. I modeled the top and bottom, which are going to be a dark metal, and then put a cylinder in the center to act as the glass. For the broken one, I hollowed out the glass portion and added some holes. I can't make it clear, like it's supposed to be, but I did split up the model so I could do a nice job finishing and painting this. I did a little bit of sanding, applied some spray-on primer, and then added a little bit of wood filler. Sadly, I didn't have time to do too much finishing. Thankfully, the painting went pretty quickly, since these only have 2 to 3 colors each. For the stone owl, I mixed some normal gray acrylic paint with some folk art silver paint to get a slightly shiny look, like polished stone. I applied a bit of gold to the beak and the eyes to finish this off. The meteor took a bit more time, but it was also pretty straightforward. After applying a base coat of grayish purple, I went back and applied metallic purple to all of the crystals. I only had time to do 2 coats on the crystals, which is less than I normally do, but it still looked pretty good. For the capsules, I used metallic paint for the glass sections, which was the best I could do, and then applied the darker paint to the top and bottom of the cylinders. It's not my favorite, but it is very recognizable. After painting the empty capsule, I glued the top on. This didn't take much extra time, and printing it in 2 pieces definitely let me do a better job finishing and painting it. I sprayed all of these with some matte sealer, and they were ready to deploy. I've got to admit, these came out pretty well given the timing. The stone owl is definitely my favorite. It looks great, and I'm really impressed at the details. If you were only going to make one of these, I highly recommend it be this. I really do like the meteor. I wish I had more time to finish it because there are some rough areas on these crystals when you look closely, but it's visually impressive when you first see it, which is all I needed for this prank. The capsules also turned out well, they're just not quite as cool as the other two. These were a huge success. The first day, I hid the stone owl. It was in the cupboard, so my wife found it while making her breakfast. She immediately knew what it was and suspected there was more to come. The second day, I put out the strange capsule. I had wanted to leave this for 3 days, like in the game, before switching it out for the empty capsule, but I just didn't have time. After a few hours, when she had left the room, I made the switch. She didn't notice immediately, and when she did, there was a split second where she thought she was the one that broke it, which was a pretty funny twist. The last day, I put out the meteorite, and by this point she already knew it was coming. I do think this would have been funnier if I had stretched this out over a longer period of time, but I'm still glad I did it. If you enjoyed this and want to make your own, all of these will be on Thingiverse as separate projects. There'll be links in the video description down below. If you like Stardew and want to see my other projects, I'll put a playlist on screen someplace around here. If you want to follow my work and get notified when I post a new video, then make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Until next time.